Mr. Toastmasters. Greetings and salutations to my fellow Toastmasters, and thank you for the opportunity to speak before you today. A little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida, where I resided for 30 years before moving to Atlanta for a few years, then off to sunny Phoenix, and finally to here in Colorado Springs, where one day I hope to move back to my native land of Florida. I joined Toastmasters with the hope of becoming comfortable with speaking in front of an audience, or whether it's a presentation or a job interview, or just answering a question from my manager in front of my colleagues. I'm looking for the cure of the ums and the ahs and the stumbling over my words and the mind blank of forgetting everything that I wanted to communicate. So let's get started. Through my career, I've learned some valuable lessons that I've carried with me, and I've hopefully shared those along the way. One of my first job opportunities after high school was a part-time teller at a bank in downtown Jacksonville. At the time, I only worked Fridays and maybe covered for vacation for some tellers, so I wasn't there that often. One afternoon, this gentleman walks in a suit, he walks into the bank and he hands me a $2,000 check made for cash. I smile, I greet him, and I ask for ID. I watched in confusion as his neck and his face turned angry red, and I thought his necktie was gonna strangulate him right in front of me. He took one large step away from my teller window. "Margaret!" he yelled from the lobby. "Margaret!" His voice boomed across the entire bank as he looked over his shoulder at the branch manager who was scurrying over to him. "What the?" he yelled at Margaret. "Do you know who I am?" Everyone in the bank was staring, and those that knew him, they took off in different directions. Margaret quickly apologized and said that I was new and that I don't care if she started today. He cut her off. "She should know who I am," he said in a strained voice. Margaret finally guided him off towards her office before coming back and snatching the check from my still stunned hand, handing it to the head teller and asked her to cash it and bring his money to her office. "He's the city attorney and he has lots of money in this bank," she barked at me under her breath. I cannot believe or explain how humiliated and embarrassed and the sense of horror I felt at that moment. I thought for sure I was going to get fired right on the spot. Fortunately, I did not, but I took that lesson with me and I swore that I would never, ever utter those words to anyone under any circumstances. I could tell you throughout my professional career, I've been in situations where that phrase, "Do you know who I am?" would be quite appropriate. But I remember how I felt, and I make sure I address that situation with empathy and use it as a coachable moment. Another lesson I learned when I took over Director of Operations for 8 massage envies in Arizona and the Las Vegas region, I spent my first 3 months running one of the locations so that I could immerse myself in the day-to-day operations. Coming from the finance world, us being counters, we don't get much interaction with other people. I obviously didn't understand the social etiquette of running a large team. I would come in every day, say good morning, and head straight to my office to get through my emails and financial reviews and resumes and whatever else was piled on my desk. Finally, a junior manager pulled me aside and said, "Carol, you need to stop and say hello and chat to the front desk. Go to the back and talk to the therapist." Perplexed, I said, "Well, why?" "Because they think you're mad at them. You go straight to your office and start working." "I have so much to do." It wasn't that I was rude. I was just so focused on the long list of things that I had to do, I didn't realize how it looked when I walked in and waved a good morning and went straight to my office. She said, "Just take 15 minutes and just chat with the staff." I'm telling you, that's the best advice I've ever been given. And because I took the time to chat with my sales staff and my therapist, I had the most amazing team. And once I started traveling around to different locations, I took the time to say hello and talk to each one of them on a personal level. It took away all the mystery and the stigma of my position. Now, any company I work for, I take the time to speak with all the employees, regardless of how much work I have sitting on my desk. Because building that trust and that rapport and those relationships go a long way. In my toolbox, I have many stories such as the ones I've shared with you today. I love to share with new employees and with especially new managers with the hopes that they can learn from me. Same as I hope to learn from you, my fellow Toastmasters. And that city attorney, several years later, long after I had left the banking world, I saw him on the 6 o'clock news in handcuffs with indictments for fraud, racketeering, and misuse of public funds. Well, yes, sir, I know who you are now. Thank you, and back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.